divisive media spectacle of soldiers arriving to the Brazilian Amazon isn't going to solve the fire problem. Argentinians march in rejection of police violence and judicial impunity. And the Mediterranean migrant crisis continues as at least 5 migrants have been confirmed dead in a shipwreck. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Doris Polo. After rejecting the offer of help from the G7 to fight the fires in the Amazon, the Brazilian president Jair Bolsonaro has partly backtracked. Bolsonaro now says he is prepared to negotiate on the $20 million of aid if the French president Emmanuel Macron withdraws his insults against the Brazilian government. On Tuesday morning, President Bolsonaro met governors from the Amazon region, where they again stressed the need to open up indigenous land to economic exploitation. Bolsonaro attacked the policies of previous governments to demarcate and protect indigenous land. And President Donald Trump has praised President Bolsonaro's efforts to control the fires in Amazonia. On Twitter, the U.S. leader said he is doing a great job for the people of Brazil. He has the full support of the USA. In the state of Rondônia, one of the regions of the Amazon's worst hit by the wildfires, the Brazilian military has taken charge of firefighting operations. But as our correspondent Brian Meyer reports, not everyone is convinced they'll help.
Far-right President Jair Bolsonaro announced that the Brazilian military has taken over the firefighting operations in Rondônia, where ranchers connected to the international supply chain are burning indigenous lands at record rates. But despite the media spectacle of soldiers arriving in the area, many activists say that this is not a problem that can be solved with a few hundred troops with hoses, axes, and chainsaws.
This government is trying to dismantle the Brazilian state, including its control and regulatory instruments. To give you an idea, the environmental protection agencies in Rondônia and 20 other Brazilian states haven't had superintendents since February. It's an agency without any administrative direction, so there's no way it can operate.
In addition to gutting the regulatory agencies, new roads are being carved into the jungle, which will make it easier for agribusiness to cut up the forest and ship soy downriver to international ports.
It is this government that is encouraging them to do this. This week, Congress will vote on Bill 343, which opens up 50% of indigenous reservations for exploitation.
As Brazilians are bombarded with media images of heroic-looking soldiers and fiery nationalist rhetoric from President Bolsonaro, agribusiness continues on its path of destruction. Brian Meyer, Telesur, Porto Velho.
Meanwhile, the Bolivian government has accepted international cooperation to fight fires in Santa Cruz, where more than 700,000 hectares have been affected.
The Bolivian Foreign Ministry is in charge of coordinating international cooperation in order to suppress fires that are affecting over 700,000 hectares in the Santa Cruz department.
The government has accepted all cooperation. We have been working since day one with international organizations. We have been talking with a number of countries. You have to understand that coordinating with other countries doesn't happen overnight.
After a meeting with foreign delegates and representatives from international bodies, international cooperation was confirmed to fight the fires.
There are some resources that can provide help. We can also bring specialized assistance so they can guide the actions the state should implement. These resources also help us in mobilizing technical assistance from other international organizations.
International organizations also highlighted the actions taken by the Bolivian government to face the emergency.
The government took immediate actions through the use of airplanes to put out the fires, which has been very effective. Authorities are maintaining control over hotspots. As such, we can see the fires are being kept under control.
The government received over $1 million in aid during the first few days of the fire. Canada and the United States offered experts. while Peru sent 2 Russian helicopters, and Argentina sent a group of rescue workers. Over the past few hours, the fires have lost some strength, but the Meteorological Service has launched an orange alert due to an upcoming heat wave in the affected areas.
Now, the wildfires in the Amazon rainforest, though troubling, will have no direct impact on Guyana. The assurance comes from Guyana's government. It says the local forestry commission has increased its monitoring of the Amazon rainforest in the south of the country, where it is known as the Iwokrama. With support from Norway, Guyana has been able to access satellite coverage of its rainforest. This monitoring will make it possible for officials to spot anything that could cause concern. Moving on to the Eastern Caribbean, people in Barbados are breathing a sigh of relief after the passing of Storm Dorian. Residents have been officially given the all clear to venture outside. 5 a.m. on Tuesday was the agreed start time for the country to reopen after the passage of Tropical Storm Dorian overnight. The green light was given following a meeting of government officials chaired by Prime Minister Mia Mottley overnight. This has allowed for the reopening of businesses and the public service at 10 a.m. And the Transport Board has also resumed full service to the public. Mottley spoke to the country via a media conference at the Emergency Management Department early on Tuesday morning.
I just want to say that we need to give thanks, and above all else, it isn't only giving thanks at my level. I am not as equipped as Minister Jordan to do the deep prayers, but be assured that I have said my own, and I'd like each Barbadian to say their own according to their own faith, because from all reports there's virtually no damage. But it is still early, and we are cognizant that we will continue to encourage persons to reach out to the DEM over the course of today, but less than 10 incidents have been reported, and they really all predominantly are fallen trees. There's only one instance of house roof, and not even full damage.
St. Lucia has also survived the passing of Tropical Storm Dorian, and the all clear has been given by the National Emergency Management Organization known as NEMO. The island had been under a tropical storm warning and total shutdown since 6 p.m. on Monday, both of which have been discontinued.
The Met services have discontinued the tropical storm warnings for St. Lucia from 8 a.m. today. As a result, the St. Lucia Meteorological Services will issue no more advisories on Tropical Storm Dorian. However, small craft operators are advised to remain in port, and residents of areas prone to flooding and landslides should continue to exercise caution. The St. Lucia Meteorological Services will issue additional statements if the need arises. As a consequence, the Prime Minister has approved the all clear for St. Lucia effective 10 a.m. In that regard, employers are advised to determine time for reopening of their businesses. Additionally, it is recommended that employees verify with their employers regarding reporting time for work. The public is further advised to contact business places regarding opening hours. I thank you.
Now, Tropical Storm Dorian is expected to reach the Dominican Republic on Wednesday, and there are fears it may strengthen to hurricane force on the way. Let's hear from our correspondent in Santo Domingo, Desi Toussaint.
Tropical Storm Dorian is moving over the Windward Islands, heading west-northwest across the Caribbean. This is the 4th storm registered during this year's hurricane season. The first 3 were Chantal, Andrea, and Barry. Since Monday, Caribbean governments have remained on alert as the president of the Dominican Republic has activated emergency services in order to be ready to face whatever the storm may bring. Meanwhile, the governor of Puerto Rico signed a decree declaring a state of emergency in the island, as Tropical Storm Dorian could turn into a Category 1 hurricane when it hits on Wednesday. Authorities have also set up shelters which can house close to 50,000 people. In Barbados, the Prime Minister ordered all schools and government institutions closed, that all citizens remain indoors. That has since been lifted. And in St. Lucia, the Prime Minister also announced a national shutdown starting late on Monday. Experts agree that if Dorian becomes a hurricane, its passage through Hispaniola could slow down significantly and turn it back to a tropical storm.
That was our correspondent Daisy Toussaint with that report. Still to come, 8 Venezuelans return home from Ecuador through the Bolivarian government's Return to the Homeland plan. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Argentinians are marching against police violence and judicial impunity across the country. Social movements and the victims of police violence called the demonstration in 16 cities. According to the Coordination Against Police and Institutional Repression organization, the current government of President Mauricio Macri has been the most repressive since the return of democracy in Argentina. During the almost 4 years of his administration, 1,303 people have been killed by the state, which is 20% of the cases since 1983. Staying in Argentina, International Monetary Fund officials met on Monday with both the current administration and representatives of the Frente de Todos coalition after their win in the Paso primary election earlier this month. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, has the details.
Representatives of the International Monetary Fund, led by Alejandro Werner, the current IMF director for the Western Hemisphere, have held meetings with the Argentine government. In particular, the tax ministry, in order to analyse the situation in the country following the obligatory primary elections earlier this month. The meetings also focused on what this means for a new loan of around $5.4 billion that the IMF is set to give to the Argentine government in September. The IMF authorities are also meeting with the economic team of the Frente de Todos coalition and Alberto Fernandez, following their winning result in the 11th of August primary election and looking ahead to the presidential election scheduled for October 27th. Fernandez has said negotiations will continue and that Argentina won't default on its debt if he assumes the presidency.
That was Edgardo Esteban with that report. Moving up the South American continent, 8 Venezuelans are flying home from Ecuador through the Bolivarian government's Return to the Homeland plan. 43 left from the Ecuadorian capital, Quito, while a further 37 traveled from the coastal city of Guayaquil. The latest beneficiaries of the plan bring the number of Venezuelans who have returned from Ecuador with assistance from President Maduro's government to 3,200 since September 2018. Across Latin America, the Return to the Homeland plan has helped 15,466 Venezuelan citizens return to their country, many of whom have denounced xenophobia and labor exploitation.
We've been in Ecuador for 1 year and 2 months, and the truth is been quite hard. We've lived through difficult situations. I came here with my husband, baby, and 16-year-old brother. My brother was beaten up, and my husband was verbally abused on various occasions. It's been hard with our baby. We left Venezuela to see if we could do some medical exams here, but it was even more difficult. We're returning to Venezuela because being here isn't worth it.
We hear about the return to the homeland from my mom, who is in Venezuela and always watches the news. She told us about it, and then we look on social media. We visit the Venezuelan embassy here, and they were really good to us.
Staying in Ecuador, the lawyer of Swedish digital privacy activist Ola Binhi has denounced that the Ecuadorian prosecutor's office has asked for the charges against his client to be changed. Describing the decision as illegal and desperate, the defense attorney Carlos Soria said that now the prosecution can't find any evidence of an attack on information systems, they are trying to change the supposed crime. Soria added that the case will serve as an example of how to violate the Constitution Constitution and Human Rights. Ola Bini previously served 70 days in an Ecuadorian jail without any evidence presented against him. In Trinidad and Tobago, Public Services Association President Watson Duke has been hospitalized after being arrested by police. Duke was held on Monday in connection with statements he made a few months ago. And just last week, he had some pretty strong words for Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley while responding to Dr. Rowley's criticism of public servants.
So shut your stink mouth, you progressive. I want to say that to you this morning. Every time you seem to speak foul language to hurt and denigrate people. Shut your stink mouth this morning. Shut up.
Now, the PSA president, who is also the Tobago House of Assembly minority leader, has not been charged. However, he is said to be cooperating with police. Meanwhile, opposition MP Dr. Rudal Munilal has commented on Duke's arrest, calling it political persecution. Speaking at a political meeting, Dr. Munilal warned party supporters to look out for more arrests.
And as a totalitarian government, I warn you, watch for arrests of religious leaders, political opponents. As I speak to you now, trade union leader and minority leader in the Tobago House of Assembly, Watson Duke is being questioned by the police. Today, tomorrow, he could be charged for making statements. Understand what is happening here. Persons who make statements against this government now face persecution on charges of sedition and treason and all that type of thing. That is the work of dictatorship.
Tributes are pouring in from around the Caribbean region on the death of Kenrick Georges, the music genius and composer of St. Kitts and Nevis's national anthem. Georges, a national icon, wrote the song O Land of Beauty, which was adopted as the anthem when St. Kitts and Nevis achieved independence in 1983. He was born in Newtown, St. Kitts in 1955 and died on Monday at the age of 64 in New York, where he had lived for some time. Former Prime Minister Denzel Douglas paid glowing tribute to Georges, whom he says epitomizes what it means to be truly Kittitian and Nevisian.
Kenrick was a gentle yet courageous soul who used his extraordinary intellect and exceptional skills in music and poetry to bring life's lessons and joy to all humanity.
After the break, the Spanish far-right party Vox blocked a motion expressing concern about fires in the Canary Islands because it references climate change. Don't touch that remote. Welcome back. The Mediterranean migrant crisis continues as at least 5 migrants, including 1 child, have been confirmed dead after a Europe-bound boat sank off the coast of Libya. The bodies of the 5 migrants were recovered, while up to 20 others are still missing. A United Nations refugee agency reported that about 40 people were feared dead after a boat carrying migrants was wrecked. Most survivors were reported to be from Sudan, with others from Egypt, Morocco, and Tunisia.
After the boat sank, it was over. People were scattered everywhere. I brought my 2 children to the surface. I wanted to save others who were in the water, but the boat had totally sank. I couldn't save them.
Moving on, Gambia's first post-independence president, Dawada Kairaba Jawara, has died at the age of 95. Jawara led the West African country for 24 years before being deposed in a 1994 coup. He founded the Protectorate People's Party in 1959, which was later renamed the People's Progressive Party and emerged as the dominant political force following independence from Britain in 1965. The country's current president, Adama Barrow, described the late leader as an elder statesman and Gambia's founding father. Police in Kenya have arrested 2 local chiefs for inflating figures during the ongoing national census in the northeastern region. According to officials, the 2 leaders allowed census takers to count people twice in Wajir County. The arrests have generated a stir on social media as census data determines the amount of money that country governments receive, and also the creation of new constituencies with highly populated regions getting more seats in parliament. And with some historic news, revived national carrier Uganda Airlines took back to the skies on Tuesday for the first time in nearly 18 years. The Ugandan Prime Minister has hailed the development, saying it will allow nearby countries to easily access the Ugandan market and boost the economy. The airline is currently flying to 7 destinations: Nairobi, Mogadishu, Juba, Dar es Salaam, Mombasa, Kilimanjaro, and Bujumbura.
On April 23rd this year, we took delivery of our first 2 CRJ regional aircraft. 2 additional CRJ 900 aircraft shall be delivered in September this year. And by close of next year, 2020, 2 wide-body Airbus A330neo aircraft will be delivered for long-haul flights to Europe, Asia, and the Middle East.
Moving on with world news, the far-right Vox party has blocked a motion in the Spanish Senate that would have expressed concern about the fires raging in the Canary Islands. Vox claimed that the motion sought to justify progressive ideology by addressing climate change. It is the second time that Vox has blocked a motion like this, having impeded a planned statement condemning LGBTQI phobia in February. The fires in the Canary Islands have been described as an environmental catastrophe without precedent, as 84% of the affected territory is part of protected nature reserves. The Russian president and his Turkish counterpart have met at an international aviation and space salon at the Zhukovsky International Airport. After sharing ice creams at the event, Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan were expected to hold talks about the crises in Syria and Ukraine, among other issues affecting the region. The 2 leaders' closer relationship has been put under strain by the fighting in northwest Syria, where Russian and Syrian forces bombed a Turkish convoy earlier this month.
I'm pleased to welcome all participants and guests of the International Aviation and Space Salon, and above all our kind friend President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. I am sure that all our foreign partners and of course our Turkish friends will be interested in the achievements of Russian domestic aviation industry enterprises and technical capacities of Russian aerospace forces.
In China, the country has voiced strong dissatisfaction concerning a joint statement issued by G7 leaders supporting Hong Kong's autonomy. The Foreign Ministry says this is only China's internal affairs and that no foreign government or individual should intervene.
The protests and violence have lasted for more than 2 months in Hong Kong, seriously affecting Hong Kong's rule of law, public order, economy, people's livelihood, and international image. No one is more concerned about Hong Kong's prosperity and stability than the Chinese people, the people of Hong Kong included. China can well handle its own affairs. The G7 members, please do not put your nose in with ulterior motives.
Thousands of students have rallied in the capital of Pakistan-administered Kashmir to condemn the lockdown imposed by India on Srinagar as it enters its 22nd day. The demonstrators chanted, "We want freedom," and demanded an end to human rights violations in Indian-administered Kashmir. Security forces remain on high alert in the region, while communication continues to be down and movement is for the most part restricted.
Today, our protest is against the operation of India in Kashmir, and we are on the road to show solidarity with our Kashmir brothers and sisters, and also to show that the Indian president should stop oppression against them.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.